Full Recovery: The Recovering Person's Guide to Unleashing Your Inner Power. Read by the author, Brian McAlister. Introduction.
Today, you are beginning a life-changing experience. You may be in a recovery program or simply wish to make positive changes, but are you struggling to take the next step and experience life in all its richness? This book will show you how to take that step and realize your dreams. Your dreams of abundance will become reality if you simply make a commitment to listen and take action. My definition of abundance goes far beyond money and material wealth. It includes love, truth, health, spiritual prosperity, and peace of mind. You will be given the tools to awaken within you the ability to create a compelling future and achieve your destiny. Addiction of any kind is the opposite of freedom and in no way resembles abundant living. It is a habit rooted in self-deception and fear. Addiction occupies your focus and hijacks your consciousness. It deludes you into believing you can deceive yourself and others. Duplicity promotes anxiety and fear that mutates into depression and guilt. Addiction interferes with your creative impulses. It prohibits you from being able to organize your good ideas in any meaningful way. You are unable to stay productive or exercise any rational choice regarding your actions or enterprise because your focus is constantly being drawn away from your dreams and toward your addiction. The paradox of addiction is that in your attempt to empower yourself through artificial means, you actually give up your free will to those outside forces you turn to for empowerment. The very thing you use to grant yourself control over your unpleasant internal state becomes the cause of your internal distress. The reality is that although fear and addiction can destroy your connection with your creativity, they cannot destroy your potential to do great things. Your potential is a freely given birthright and part of your destiny. Your ability to create and achieve is a choice. As with creativity, recovery is also a choice. It is right thinking. It is soundness of thought and action. Recovery allows you to realign the misguided perception of the material world, which your ego has created, with the true nature of the universe in all its splendor. The suggestions I offer in this book are designed to take you beyond abstinence and give you the personal insight needed to realign those misguided perceptions that have been holding you back. You will learn the skills needed to trade addiction for inspiration. By answering the thought-provoking questions I pose in each chapter, you will gain the awareness and introspection needed to reach your full potential. By picking up this book, you have made a choice to embark on a life of unlimited possibilities. I would venture a guess that this is not the first time you have heard about reaching your full potential. But what does that statement actually mean? The word potential is derived from the root word potent, which means powerful or wielding force, authority, or influence. Potential is defined as that which is possible and able to be developed into actuality. Think about what the definition of potential means for you. It says you are empowered. You have authority over your decisions and your life. You are capable of developing into the person you actually want to be. You are a force to be reckoned with. Now that you've chosen recovery, the only limits to your potential are the restrictions you put on yourself and your own creativity. The miracle of recovery is that you can choose, right now, today, to reach your full potential. You might be thinking, well, that sounds good, but I'm already too old, or I don't have the education, or I've had bad breaks, or any number of fearful excuses that keep you stagnant and unfulfilled. Remember this: you are not old until your regrets replace your dreams. Old is a very subjective term. When I was in my early 30s, I was physically and mentally old. 20 years of alcohol and drug abuse had extinguished my dreams. Regrets and depression had replaced the confidence of youth. I felt I had squandered my opportunities. I lacked a formal education, had no marketable skills, and due to my alcoholism and other addictions, was unable to hold down a job. Suicidal thoughts were repressed by intoxication to the point of blacking out. A sense of overwhelming, impending doom haunted me. How did I get to that place? What had happened to me? Let me explain. As a child, I grew up in a blue collar town with blue collar values. People worked hard and played hard. I was taught never to be afraid, or worse, to show fear. If you were afraid to fight, or you showed fear, you were going to have a very rough time. I learned to play many roles and wear many disguises. At an early age, I started admiring and imitating people who seemed to have no fear. Little did I know at that time that ignorance, alcohol, and drug abuse often mask fear. My formative years were in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Alcohol and drug use were very much a part of the counterculture. Once I tried them, so was I. Fear left me. I would live by my own rules. I would be a rebel, defiant. I would play God. As a child, I was taught that children are to be seen and not heard. I decided I would be heard. All through my 20s, I lived an outlaw biker lifestyle. My world revolved around getting high and riding my Harley. I was intoxicated 24/7. I was involved in many violent altercations. I used my living room as my garage. That's right. I would drive my Harley right through the front door and park it on the living room carpet. I would tell my wife it was just to make sure it didn't get stolen. How's that for self-justification? By medicating myself with drugs and alcohol, my consciousness of right and wrong became blurred. The choices I made created the life I was living. The seeds I had sown bore rotten fruit. The results were self-evident. I was an alcoholic, drug-addicted biker. My family life and marriage were deplorable, and my finances even worse. I had been in several severe car and motorcycle accidents, some with prolonged hospital stays. I was basically unemployable and praying for the end. Make that hoping for the end, because, at the time, I did not acknowledge the existence of God or any other higher power. God and I had a falling out years earlier when the concept of the forgiving Christ and the turn the other cheek lectures I had endured were pitted against the reality of my being permanently expelled from a Catholic high school for what I considered a minor offense. The situation smelled of hypocrisy and I would not accept it. Instead, I nurtured a resentment that almost killed me and simply made everyone else I came into contact with miserable. My wife and my son were exposed to a low-rent lifestyle they neither wanted nor deserved. My life was on a downward spiral, and I saw no way out. Rather than taking responsibility for my actions, I managed to convince myself that my wife was really the problem. If I could just get away from her nagging, I wouldn't have to drink and drug so much. So I made arrangements to leave my wife and small son on the West Coast and head back east. Luckily, Providence intervened. I had a horrible accident, the effects of which are still being realized today. Out of that tragedy has grown a way of life so infinitely rewarding that I could not have imagined it possible while in the depths of my addiction. It has resulted in a complete transformation of ideas and concepts that are the basis for this book. And I can say with complete confidence that what you'll read here will lead you to a higher awareness and an exceptional life in recovery. You are standing at the threshold of unlimited possibility. It's time to take action and step through the doorway. History gives us many other examples of outstanding results achieved by people considered old or uneducated by society's standards. Colonel Sanders, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken, didn't start selling his famous chicken recipe with 11 herbs and spices until after he retired from the post office. His dissatisfaction with his income and his way of life drove him to create one of the largest and most successful restaurant chains in the world. Another great example is Albert Einstein. As hard as it might be for you to believe, Einstein was unable to find employment as a teacher upon graduating from college. His professors refused to give him a letter of recommendation, which at that time was a requirement for being hired as a teacher. They considered him lazy, and one professor had actually failed him in physics. Einstein settled for a job in the government patent office reviewing applications. It was during this low point in his life that he developed the theories that revolutionized the science of physics and transformed our understanding of the universe. These men are but two people who decided to reach their potential. Maybe life has been preparing you for just this moment to achieve abundance.
Ted's journey to full recovery.
I know a man whom I'll call Ted in order to protect his anonymity. Ted entered his mid-30s as a low-bottom alcoholic and drug addict. The day finally came when Ted could no longer stomach this depressing lifestyle, and he decided to do whatever it took to get sober. After seeking treatment and staying sober, he set his sights on achieving full recovery. Ted decided to realize his full potential. He had always been interested in the medical field and decided to be a volunteer emergency medical worker. He studied and became an EMT. Ted felt proud of his accomplishment and found his job of helping people rewarding, but his newfound confidence gave him an appetite to reach higher. Ted was ready for a bigger challenge, so he went back to school and studied to become a nurse. As a nurse, Ted excelled and always surpassed the expectations of his patients and doctors. But before too long, he once again came to the realization that he still was not reaching his full potential. Ted learned through the miracle of sobriety that with God, all things are possible. But he did not stop with that realization. He took action. Even though he had little money and was then in his mid-40s, he made a decision to become a doctor. The noun decision comes from the verb to decide, whose Latin root, decidere, means to cut away. Ted decided at that moment to cut away from his limiting beliefs. Many naysayers were only too happy to give their opinions. They told him he was too old to start training to be a doctor. He would never get into medical school with his background. He would be in his 50s by the time he graduated. He couldn't afford it. But Ted had made a life-altering decision, a decision to reach his full potential. He applied to every medical school in the USA. He then searched the whole world over looking for a school willing to give him a chance. Finally, he received a letter that he had been accepted into a school in Latin America. Ted left the United States and moved to a third world country. It was not an easy situation. He had very little money and lived in substandard housing. Yet, through it all, he let nothing distract him, kept true to his goal to be a doctor, and persevered. I recently ran into Ted. Having graduated from medical school, he was currently employed by an international nonprofit providing free medical care to the poor. Ted is in his 50s now, just as the naysayers had predicted. The difference is that Ted reached that age as a doctor. He would have been in his 50s either way, but Ted arrived fulfilled and happy, having achieved his goal, as opposed to depressed and full of regret for not having tried. Ted is a true inspiration. He is an example of what making a decision and keeping a commitment to a full recovery can mean for you. Ted recognized the enormous opportunities and unlimited potential this experience we call life has to offer. Think about it for a moment. To be living in the Western Hemisphere in the 21st century is truly a blessing. Our standard of living is the highest in recorded history. The luxuries we take for granted today would have been considered miracles or impossible only a few short decades ago. We have access to the very best healthcare, education, technology, and material comforts, yet many of us still live an unfulfilled, fearful existence. Lack of direction, coupled with incessant worrying, dilutes our self-esteem. Depression and addiction have become the plagues of our modern time. Untreated addiction is responsible for untold misery and loss. I know what I'm talking about. When I was a young man, addictions, fear, lack, and ignorance were my constant companions. My experience in this world of addiction is in such sharp contrast to the life of abundance I currently enjoy that it almost feels as though it were another lifetime ago. And in a lot of ways, it was. I believe that I have been catapulted into a new enlightened existence. I have been granted the best deal ever, 2 lives for the price of 1. The best part is that this deal is available to anyone willing to take the same simple and enlightening journey. What unfolds in the 3 parts of this book is what I like to call the journey to full recovery. In part 1, exploration, you'll start by digging deep to discover the habits and beliefs that led to your poor decision-making in the past. You will learn effective ways of overcoming fear, reprogramming your mind for success, and avoiding relapse. In part 2, motivation, I provide effective exercises that help you discover what truly motivates you. You decide if your present course is right or wrong. Do you want to chart a new course? You learn how to develop a better internal dialogue and jumpstart your own idea of abundant recovery. You'll pinpoint obstacles you are currently facing and learn how they can be overcome. You'll learn effective ways to communicate your intentions and attract people capable of helping you. In the final section, Part 3, Dedication, you will define and develop a game plan for accomplishing one substantial life improving personal project. You will learn the time tested ethical standards and character traits needed for long term success. You will be given the tools to overcome hurdles and real life challenges. You will discover ways of communicating with secretaries and support staff that will open previously locked doors. I'll teach you the skills needed to schedule appointments, market your ideas, ask for a raise, or start a business. You will learn how the same skill set needed to maintain sobriety could be used to advance your career and strengthen personal relationships. I want to stress that reading this book is a great beginning, but reaching your full potential will require your participation. I will be asking you many questions, and you will have to write down the answers to all of them in order to get the desired results. I speak to you in a language that is easily understood, and the exercises will provide measurable results. I promise that I have done my best not to waste any of your time with unimportant details. You will need a notebook or electronic device, of course, to save your answers and do the work explained in the exercises. So, right now, go and get yourself a notebook or open a file and write the words Full Recovery Action Plan. Each and every time you read through a chapter, make sure you have your full recovery action plan handy. It will become your roadmap to success. Following through on this simple task today is the first step on your journey to success. For the past 24 years, I have studied success and human nature with a major focus on addiction and recovery. I have witnessed the horror of active addiction and the emotional trauma of relapse. I've also seen scores of addicts get sober yet not be able to experience all the joy and abundance of a full recovery. They continue to struggle in their relationships and suffer the burdens of financial insecurity. I have helped many individuals experience a full recovery, and I now want to help you do the same. It is widely accepted that a good coach, mentor, or teacher is of great value in learning any skill. The ability of one recovering person to help another recovering person overcome addiction has been well documented. The practice of mentoring and sponsorship has proven itself through the successful rehabilitation of millions of suffering addicts and alcoholics. A good mentor saves valuable time and energy. I will endeavor to mentor you on your quest to create a personal action plan for life beyond sobriety. Let my experiences of both success and disappointment help hasten the journey to abundance you have embarked upon. You may have noticed that I speak of God or the Creator throughout the introduction of this book. Just to clarify, I am not preaching or suggesting that you trade in your own personal concept of a higher power for mine or anyone else's. There are universally accepted truths that I present, and it is of little consequence if they come from the Bible, a scientist, a statesman, or a philosopher. This book is designed to produce action, create momentum, and achieve results, all while staying spiritually grounded, morally fit, and sober. For if you stay spiritually grounded and keep moving forward, you will never relapse. Many techniques for becoming successful will be discussed, but unless they are built on the bedrock of time-tested moral values, any profit you gain will be short-lived. So I ask you now, are you sober? What's next? Once you achieve sobriety, what do you dream of accomplishing? What is your potential? What gifts and abilities has the Creator given you? The power to be a miracle is in you. Be an expression of who you really are, and you will be blessed. You will live without fear. You will live your true potential. The world is full of miracles, as I've experienced in my own life and as we saw in Dr. Ted's story. We witness the miracle of full recovery every day. By witnessing, demonstrating, and sharing with others, we learn to abandon our belief in lack and deprivation in favor of belief in joy and abundance. Let me welcome you to a life of abundance. I am glad you have decided you are worthy of the best life has to offer. We've been expecting you. Welcome to full recovery.